Shalom, buenos dias, le de Dios, Yahweh be with you all. I'm gonna come. I have a couple little things I want to share with you. I've been wanting to do it for a while. I figured I better just do it now. Okay, I want to talk about a little bit about criminology. Criminology is the study of crime and criminal behavior with a focus on the social and psychological factors that drive crime. Criminologists use their knowledge to help to prevent crime, and improve the criminal justice system. By studying the causes of crime, both biological and psychological and social factors, the environmental factors, analyze the impact of crime on victims and society, evaluate criminal justice policies, research and develop new creative crime prevention methods, help criminal justice system solve crimes and cases, and for reformation and for to decrease recidivism. Schools of thought about the criminal justice system. The first school of thought is the one that I pertain to. It's fallen out of use per se, but it was the original, and I believe is modified, and I have modified it. That is the demonological perspective. It's a classical perspective, stating that human beings commit crimes because we are subject to different demonic entities and stuff like that. And while I don't completely agree that it's 100% demonic, I believe that it is influenced by that still, and it's definitely suggestive and incorporates that. And if you have the idea of God or Christianity or Catholicism, or from the Hebraic perspective, gods and angels and demons and stuff like that, it'll make sense, and it does make sense. But it has evolved, not evolved. It's just they kind of took that, put it on the shelf, and kind of came up with their own theories. But I believe that on top of all those other theories that they have, that this is inclusive, and that's where it derives from initially. But nonetheless, there is other schools of thought: the ecological, the economic, the psychological. Some of the psychological, like Freud, Hershey, and then Skinner. And then you have other different. You have your stigmas. You have your biological, your mental, and then your feeble-mindedness. People like Lambrosi and Ferrari. You have your economic, like capitalism versus social class. You have your Karl Marx's. Then you have your Burgers. Ecological. You have your group settings, different geographic, social settings. Then you have like Lieber, and then Becker, different criminologists that have studied this. Classical theory, the emphasis of free will and rationality on the part of the criminal actor. Now, of course, from that perspective, I come from the moral absolutist perspective, that there is a absolute empirical right versus wrong. Moral Democrats tend to believe that there is moral relativism, that truth it's not absolute, that it changes. But in 1312 before Christ, BC, the Torah was given to Israel by Yahweh. The Torah means instructions. This is like the moral conduct that we got, the moral fiber of society that we have. Then we have, going back into our modern time, we have Caesar Berkani from 1738 to 1794. The theory of deterrence. Punishment should be prevent crime, not just punish the offender. The U.S. criminal justice system and the U.S. Constitution is based off of this. Deterrence is punishment should be swift, certain, and proportional to the crime. Then you have your theory of unilateralism, which is from Jeremy Ben Thomas from 1748 to 1832. This kind of school of thought maximize pleasure and minimize pain. Kind of still versus they believe versus the right versus wrong, and benefiting the whole of society also. So this is where we get parole, probation, and community service from. And then we have Lombroso, the theory of crime, criminal man, and atavism from 1835 to 1909. criminal anthropology. So they would see people with atavistic characteristics, meaning physical abnormalities or avatus or ancestor qualities, such as primitive. They believe that it came from primitive evolution, or it was a degeneration in their genes, and it would protruded faces, big eyebrows, big long cheeks, and all this stuff. So pretty much anyone that wasn't white, European at the time, they pretty much thought that they were still like Neanderthals and stuff like that, and recesses of the ancestral path that are degenerated characteristics in their genes, which they believed led to crime. But consequently enough, it's still being used in racial profiling today, um, and also um, it's being used in profiling today. And um, yeah, so then there's also the psychological factors, lacking of feelings of remorse, cynicalism, and being very impulsive. And those were not attributed to Lombroso. Those were based off. Those were. Then you get your anime theories, Durkheim. You have strain theory, Robert Merton. You have field theory, Kurt Lewin. Then you have your uh, Sutherland and Lemert, your labeling theory. Anime, I want to go into that more. Anime is the when a society, when people have nowhere to go or nothing to do, they lose their sense of identity, they lose their sense of purpose, and here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that's exactly what's happening. People they're sending in the National Guard right now to deploy in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and on Central because of the fentanyl crisis and the death, the murder, and everything that's going on over there. This is high. We are high in anime in all of our society. Strain theory is talking about how the environmental strain, like exactly like this, like all these people that are out there, they're experiencing strain. They have homelessness. They have no jobs. They've experienced adverse childhood experiences, more than likely molested, raped, uh, almost murdered. Who knows? All kinds of bad stuff that's happened to these people that their brains just are in total survival mode all the time, and they're not in school, or for whatever reason or whatever, they're not out there and they're engaging in this prostitution. They're living in this life. The strain theory that talks about all these strains that lead towards criminality. And then you have your labeling theory about how, like, if you're labeled a criminal, you're pretty much done, or a drug addict, you're pretty much done. You're shunned, ostracized, or if you're a pedophile, or if you're this or that, you're shunned. You're done. And it talks about labeling theory. Okay, so this is where I want to talk about heavily because of all of that. This is where I think it comes from. Entropy, psychology of the devil. From a Hebraic Catholic point of view, the devil, or Hallel, Lucifer, Hasatan, the devil, the fallen angel that defied Yahweh, Elohim, God. In Islam, Iblis, jinn, he refused to bow to Adam, symbolizing arrogance and disobedience. This rebellion is a central human representation of pride, ambition, and the consequence of straying from the path of righteousness. The devil takes on forms in other cultures and serves nine similar purposes. It serves a similar purpose, not nine similar. Serves a similar purpose. He appears in Zoroastrianism as Angar Miyu, as chaos and destruction. Hinduism as Asuras, the who oppose the devas or the gods. Good versus evil, order versus chaos. These are those themes. Every culture wrestles with some fundamental questions. Why do we do evil? How can we overcome dark impulses? Some try to live with integrity. There are those who cannot resist the allure of darkness. They succumb to their desires, impulses, and ultimately to evil. Okay, so you have Arthur Schopenhauer from 1788 to 1860. Here's a quote. This is a quote from him. This is what he believed. Reality is driven by a blind, irrational force he calls will. He believes, or he believes human suffering is inherent because desire and striving are endless, and true peace comes through asceticism, art, and renunciation of the will. The will, the force, this force compels individuals to strive, compete, and dominate, often without regard for morality. Power is obtained through ruthless ambition, deception, and aggression. Those who lack ethical restraints tend to rise more easily in the hierarchies. Because of a lack of moral constraints, they are willing to lie, manipulate, and exploit others. Fear and submission. That's how they operate in fear and submission. And the illusion of strength. Many people mistake ruthlessness for competence and leadership. That's 100% true. Robert Putnam, Social Capital, the idea that relationships, networks, and community engagement create value in society. Social capital has been declining in the U.S. since the mid to 20th century, and bowling alone, instead of joining leagues, people are in, increasingly isolated, participating less in civic groups, churches, unions, and even informal social gatherings. So this was long before COVID. It's skyrocketed since then. Causes of the decline: technology and individualism, TV, internet, and social media, suburbanization and community no longer work. Um, Longer work hours and urban sprawls reduced. Uh, they have no more time for community participation because of longer work hours. Declining of traditional institutions, generational change, social commoncy, value people who gain value people gain from their social networks, social currency. Now here's where all of our society, here's where we're getting programmed from the Smith-Mundt Act that was repealed by Obama in 2008. Edward Bernays, consumerism, the godfather of consumerism, the engineering of consent. His goal, he was a cousin of Sigmund Freud, and he got his role because of that. And he is the godfather of consumerism. Docile, this is what his goals were: to make the society docile, distracted, an all consuming self. To make the population distracted by consumerism, entertainment, and Hinduism, which will lead to docile society. The masses are driven by factors outside their conscious understanding, and therefore their minds can and should be manipulated by the capable few. That's an end quote by him, by Edward Bernays. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. Propaganda, public relations. If you've ever heard these come from him. The standardized marketing approach in the modern age is to appeal to the market's deepest desires and make them feel like they want or even need the service or product on offering. Our minds are molded, our thoughts formed, and our ideas suggested, largely by men who have never heard of. It is they who pull the strings that control the public mind. Engineering of consent. Edward Bernays worked for General Electric, Procter and Gamble, American Tobacco Company, CBS. President Calvin Coolidge, 1924 election helped to get him elected. He helped in the 1924 Easter Parade, Torches of Freedom. He worked for Lucky Strike cigarettes, uh, sold the propaganda that they would soothe throats and slim the waistbands for the women. He sold Dixie cups, or said that the Dixie cups were the only sanitary cups to buy. He even got work with the Third Reich in 1920 by Joseph Goebbels for the Führer cult. This was a Supreme Court Justice, Felix Frankfurter, warned President Franklin Roosevelt against allowing Bernays to play a leadership role in World War II, describing him and his colleagues as professional poisoners of the public mind. That was Edward Bernays, the godfather of consumerism. That's why everything's so materialistic nowadays. Okay, so here's psychopathy signs. Factor 1, callous, unemotional, manipulative, and deceitful. Factor 2, impulsive, irresponsibility, and committing crimes. Both have limited pro-social emotions. Here's your uh, here's your signs. Your 8 signs. Bedwetting, urinating on furniture, on areas in the house, or on people, or on children, especially. That means that they're displaying domination and aggression. 2, arson, obsession with fire and destruction. 3, animal torture, including their stuffed animals and all that kind of stuff, or anything of that general sort, and animals and everything like that. Cheating friends and family out of all kinds of different things. Ignoring a child crying. Dominant with authority, teachers, police, all this different, anyone of authority. Commits crime alone. Is super fascinated and obsessed with gore, no empathy, death, and obsession with death and watching death. Those are their signs of psychopathy. Then you have a study by Joshua D. Green by Harvard University. Green study suggests that 3 brain structures, the medial prefrontal cortex, posterior cingulate, and the angular gyrus, all play a central role in emotion processes that influence personal moral decision making. So all of those, the posterior cingulate coordinates the sensory input with emotions, emotional response to pain, regulates the aggressive behavior, communication, uh, maternal bonding, language expression, and decision making. So the posterior cingulate is responsible for all of that. But there's those 3 brain structures that are uh, influence personal moral decision making, and we'll examine that now a little bit more by Abigail Marsh, PhD. She's a neuroscientist and psychologist. Neurocognitive basis of empathy, alteration and aggression, um, psychopathy, and then this is why aggression is so high in people, because they must have a more than likely there's a high correlation of the MAOAL variant gene. It's on the X chromosome. It's a low activity variant passed from mother to child. They call it the warrior gene. And this is, they correlate, they tend to have high correlation in psychopathy with a high aggression gene variant. And then when asked moral questions, when you ask moral questions, and if you're scanned by a PET scan, people with psychopathy have low activity response to moral questions. So that's in their limbic system and the amygdala and hippocampus. So that means that they are born with reduced serotonin from birth, more than likely. So then you have your anterior cingulate cortex, you have your ventrolateral prefrontal cortex, then you have your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. And this dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is the last region of the brain to develop. This is where we develop our right versus wrong. It doesn't develop until we're 25. So until we're 25, we're not rational decision making people as human beings. So yeah, so that's definitely linked with our morality. And then psychopathic brains show less activation in the medial, prefrontal, and posterior cingulate cortex in response to moral dilemmas. That was also found by Joshua D. Green in a Harvard University study in 2001. It was revisited in 2012 by Jesus Pujol at the Hospital de Mar in Barcelona, Spain. Structures are associated with reduced connectivity to the prefrontal areas and enhanced connectivity in areas associated with cognition. So those studies can be looked up and found. And then adverse child experiences. Uh, Usually, if you have adverse childhood experiences, people develop these different personas: the bully, the manipulator, self-grandizer, the predator, or controlling personas. And then psychopathy, charming, predatory of the weak, sexual assault and beating and killing in cold blood. Those are signs of psychopathy. And sociology. And then some statistics. The DoD suicides increased after the COVID-19, like we were talking to with the Robert Putnam. And I wanted to just share those with you right away. It's 21 minutes now, so I hope you guys could review that and look into it more. But tying into that, I want to tie into this with New Mexico. New Mexico is being National Guard is being deployed to Albuquerque, New Mexico, pretty soon, and it's pretty interesting. Like I think that what they're trying to say, they're trying to rationalize it as National Guard is there to free up the police so that way they could go and do other stuff because they're understaffed and undermanned, and they're just going to be doing no policing at all. They're just going to be helping with the security of the scene, escorting, uh, I guess, arrestees, people that are arrested, and other stuff like that, medical stuff. So they're not going to be doing too much, but that's ridiculous, that is absolutely ridiculous that supposedly Chief Medina called them in, said that, and then the Mayor Keller and yeah, Bernalillo County Sheriff must have been okay with that too. But yeah, no, that's insane. Like, I don't believe in it. I believe that it should be a civic matter. You know what I mean? The National Guard shouldn't be out there doing that. They should be at the border, protecting our border, if anything, and she will not deploy them to do that. I'm all for National Guard. I support our troops, but this is on the governor. She committed treason when she declared that the Second Amendment was null and void and no constitutional right um, was was void. She said that it's not all encompassing or whatever she said, her terminology. And for a while in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Bernalillo County, you were not able to use your Second Amendment right. It was infringed upon, and now she's infringing upon our. It's almost against posse comitatus. They're getting away with it because, um, troops are not allowed to be used as law enforcement on our land. That's against posse comitatus, but they're trying to use it as well, we're the guards, so we're not federally activated, so we're not a standing army, we're just a militia. That's how they're trying to interpret it now. So now they want to play constitutional. Anyways, I pray. I pray for. I pray for New Mexico. I pray for the National Guard. I pray for all the troops. I pray for those people that are out there that are homeless, that are going through all that stuff. And I pray for our supposed leaders that we have. I pray for our civilians. I pray for all of us. And I just pray that you keep us in prayer too. This is New Mexico. Saludos desde Nuevo Mexico, Estados Unidos, Antigua, Nueva España y México también. Y que Yahweh te bendiga por siempre y para siempre. Y Nuestra Señora de Perpetuo Socorro, la conquistadora de almas, ora pro nobis, Beshem Yeshua Mashiach. I just pray that Yahweh will be with us always and be with you. And Yahweh bless. Shalom. Buenos dias, la de Dios. Hasta.